and we're starting today a unit on racial reconciliation. She can do that so much better than I can, so I'm going to let her talk to you about. I've told her she can talk about whatever she wants.
You may leave now. That's it. She did it all. Hi, I'm a teacher, so I want y'all to talk back with me, to me while I'm teaching or speaking. I don't speak, I usually teach. I'm a math teacher, and some of you have probably seen me here over the last couple of years. When I lost my daughter, I was here with Mary Margaret after her mom passed for about a year and a half and taught upstairs. Reconciliation, social, racial reintegration. What does that mean to you? Social or racial reintegration. What is integration? These are seniors, right? What's integration? Bringing it together, something together. Something may not be the same on one end, but it's the same on the opposite, but it may be different just by some minute thing. And what she's asked me to talk about is my life story. I am Mary Anna McCain Tyner Ingram. And all my names have a meaning. My mother named me after Mary Magdalene, good Mary Magdalene. Anna was named after my great 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 grandmother. McCain is my father's name, of course, and he was an adopted Anna, son. And my married name was Tyner. My first marriage and my last marriage, Ingram. And both my husbands are deceased. I'm a widow. 4 children, 4 grandchildren. I have 3 girls now. I mean, 2 girls. I had 3 girls. My daughter passed away a year and a half ago. But my thing today is to talk about my past. And I didn't think it was so great when I was growing up, but the history proved to me that I was set here for a reason. I am Native American, African American. My father has some Irish in him. So I have a culmination of a lot of backgrounds. But I grew up in North Carolina, and I just left there this past week to come visit down here for Easter holidays. We're on spring break. My grandmother was McCallum. We had to change our name to McCallums at a certain part of our history. Being a part of the Lumbee Indian tribe in North Carolina, also a part of the Irish that was brought over from European travels and the African trade. My great 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 grandfather. We They settled in North Carolina, right on the border of South Carolina, and on the Cape Fear River. The Cape Fear River in North and South Carolina was a major slave trade route, and it brought in a lot of trade into North and South Carolina, Georgia, and all on the West Coast, on the East Coast. Uh, my grandfather, David McCollum, is who my brother's named after, and Roxy McCollum, my great grandmother, all lived there in Lumbee Territory. And my grandfather on my father's side was African American. So all these relationships all played a big part in who I was. I can remember living in North Carolina and living also in the eastern part of North Carolina, where not too much went on. Now, if you read about racial unrest, it was mostly in Georgia, Alabama, those areas, Atlanta, Georgia, Macon, Georgia, those areas. But we had still unrest in North and South Carolina. We are so close to Virginia and Virginia, West Virginia, and the East Coast, Northeast Coast. They were more free than the slaves were in North and South Carolina. My grandmother on my mother's side was they owned plenty of land, but they were like sharecroppers. I can remember having apple orchards and peach orchards. My mules in the yard, and the cows would come up to the window to eat my grandmother's special apple pie or peach cobbler that she'd sit in the window to cool down for dinner. And as those days came, there was also very unrest with the Ku Klux Klan. And I was a part of that family who suffered through Ku Klux Klan time. And during that time, my grandfather, who was very anxious about his family and took very good care of his family, met up with Ku Klux Klan in when I was just a young girl, maybe my 2, 3 year old uh, age. And so when I was I'd go down from Roseboro, North Carolina, to the border of North and South Carolina. We would spend the summers at my great grandmother's house, Roxy. And Roxy was the grandmother that we stayed with on our summer vacations. We go and pick the apple orchards and clean the tobaccos and do the pick up the blueberries and you don't even know what cotton looks like if it's not in a you know what it is. We had to pick it daily, daily. That's how we made our 2 cents or my 5 cents and those type of things. Blueberries. My brother used to eat so much blueberries, his mouth would just turn blue because he wouldn't save his money. He'd make any money because he was eating all the blueberries. But cotton, tobacco, those are the things that were raised out in our part of the country. The interesting part about this integration part that I was just asking about, we were segregated. There was no integration. We were totally segregated. If you ever read in any African history, you would know that uh, there were times when we could not go in the same bathroom. We couldn't enter the same doorway. We'd have to go in the back door, or we would have color on the outside of the water fountains. Those are times that I grew up in. And so the integration had not taken place. We were still very segregated until I reached high school. You guys have enormous amount of freedom that I did not even begin to have when I was growing up as a child. And as part of my mother and grandmother's history, they taught me one thing and one thing only. We're one people. And scripture will tell you that too as well. Uh, there is in the, I pulled it up because I want to make sure we, what the Bible says about diversity. Um, Acts 17 and 26, God teaches us in the whole scripture that human race is one, but we didn't. Culture didn't teach that as I was growing up. We had to learn that. And there was only one way to learn that is to uh, treat everybody the way I wanted to be treated. I may have been talked about or picked on, whatever, when I came into the European American areas of town. We lived in colored town. That was just separated by a street, but we were still in colored town. And that as we grew up, I think I went through 3 native or African names. I was either a Negro, the slang for Negro. I was colored, then I'm African American, and I'm black. So I had to ask mom, well, who am I? I couldn't identify myself with any of those because my mother was African American, Indian, and she was also part Irish because my father she had married. So how do I recognize who I am? And so within this whole total segregated community, it was hard for me as a young woman growing up in North and South Carolina. But as we fought against Ku Klux Klan, who would come into my grandfather's orchard and burn cross on Saturday evenings when they didn't have anything else to do but burn crosses in their yards. And grandfather would put us behind doors and under the stairs of the house to keep us safe. But praise be to God, all my relatives did not die by Ku Klux Klan. It was natural causes. So I'm blessed that they went through that whole era and was killed by someone who did not like us because of the color of our skin. We also had to, uh, as I grew up and came into North Carolina as a young girl, first, second grade was at the same school. I went to the same high school for up to the 12th grade. Well, in my 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, racial unrest was highly volatile in North and South Carolina, Georgia, especially Atlanta, Macon, Georgia, those areas. Martin Luther King came into our little neighborhood, and I was already radical. So, of course, I'm in the middle of it. They're getting ready to move me from an all black school where we've been all my life to integrated white school that was totally separated by one street. And I didn't know why. And when I went into that school for the first time as a senior, now I've gone 11 years to the same school with the same friends. We went to say had the same teachers, and until that 11th year, after my girlfriend had graduated in the 12th grade, I was still getting ready to move downtown. We had to walk. Uh, you know how they say, well, I walked a mile to go to school. Well, I wasn't that far, but we had to walk and we didn't have buses. But in order for us to get into a classroom and communicate what we knew, they wouldn't allow us to. We raised our hand, we got the answer. We were smart kids, uh, but nobody would call on us. I saw right then it's going to be hard for me to graduate with my aid that I had all my life in my classes. But Martin Luther King and a couple of others came to our town and asked us to walk to the slave house, slave market in Fayetteville, North Carolina. You can look it up. It still sits in the middle of the Fayetteville. With a, it's called the marketplace or market house. It still sits there. Today. Uh, In fact, when Black Lives Matter happened a couple of weeks, a couple of months ago, they started to burn that down because it had been a source of uh, anxiety for a lot of blacks raised in that area. But we let it stay there. And so what has happened is Martin Luther King came into our territory and asked us to march with him, and we walked to Fayetteville. Well, Fayetteville is no short walk. It's like 24 miles. And Mom told me to go to school. Mom did not tell me to get up with these radicals and march to Fayetteville that Thursday morning. And I remember it. We were sitting out in the yard of the schoolhouse that we had just been placed in, didn't want to go. And my girlfriend, I said, "You going?" I said, "I'm going, but Mama's going to kill us when we get home." And so, but we all got in the line and we walked to Fayetteville that day. And to just let somebody know that we were one person, and something had to change. Something had to change. And to this day, we're still making changes or trying to get some of this reintegration. We are integrated, but we got to get some reintegration into our. And as I look back over the course of those 12 years and 12 years, 11 years of high school, and I saw what I was lacking, and that lacking was social, cultural diversity in that I didn't know who was downtown. I knew who was in Color Town, but I didn't know who my neighbors were in downtown. Bring it up to this day, I live in one of those houses that we weren't allowed to walk in. It's 100 years old. Got it renovated, and I now stay in one of the houses I wasn't allowed to stay in. That's changed. And so we have come a long way since that time. But I wanted to get to, as I look back in over my lifetime, uh, my children know North Carolina, but they don't like going there. I mean, Mary Margaret loves it because we get to go to the beach every day. I'm only an hour away from the beach, so we can go to the beach every week. But in order for my other girls They didn't grow up in just black communities. They were always integrated. We were military when I got married. We were military. We were stationed out here at Offutt. We were overseas in Europe for quite a while. My kids have traveled almost every state in the United States. So I gave them some advantages, and my husband and I did. But they do not understand racial integration because they've already always had it. There was nothing different for them. But it's been difficult for my era or my group, peer group, because we did not have it. I worked in the tobacco fields. I put up the cotton. I put up the blueberries. I did all the slave labor, I call it then, because we only made maybe 5 cents and get a Coke and a nab, and that was lunch for us. We were very poor. We didn't have a lot. My grandmother, mother, myself, my sister and brother lived in one house. My father was in the military. He was in the Navy, so he was gone quite a bit. When he got tuberculosis, he couldn't come and stay with us. He had to stay in Florida and never returned home. And so there's a lot of racial tension still in North Carolina to this day. And we have seen it in the past couple of weeks and months due to COVID-19. We all been shut up in our homes and not be able to get out as much as we want to. And so we have nothing to go back on, and politics is doing good for us. But we've got to realize that we are all one race because the Bible tells us so. And it is inevitable. I graduated from high school with honors. I didn't think I was that smart, but I made it through. I didn't go to college till I came here. I graduated from Bellevue University with a psychology degree and also a degree in women's studies. And this is from a girl whose mom only made $20 a week cleaning out somebody else's house. My sister graduated from Bennett College, an all-black female college in North Carolina. She was a scientist working for lifesavers. Who knows what a lifesaver is? She used to make those things. And she had to figure out all of those little things that goes into them, and you read them all on the packet. But I never knew what you can't even pronounce some of the words. So she knew those words, and she became a scientist. My brother went in the military, and he stayed in 25 years. He's near me now, and that's why I'm not here in Omaha because I went back home to take care of brother. But within my career and coming up to graduate from WU, probation officer right here in Sarpy County. I was the first African American female to have an executive office here in Sarpy County and worked for the county attorney's office. I worked as diversion services and for victim witness unit here. Those are both of my offices. I own my own business in Papillion with the first young girls home. I felt that girls were going into jail after they got out of jail, had nowhere to stay. So I opened a house in Papillion there by the, I think it's the elementary school right from their county offices there. That was used to be my group home. I oh gosh, I left here in 2004, went back to North Carolina and started teaching. I went back and got a teacher's degree, special education and math, K-12, all curriculum, and still doing that today. How old do you think I am? I just had a birthday. Any guesses? Say 50. I love you for it. 70 years last week. Uh, 70 years. 70 years. I've had death, lost both my husbands, lost my daughter. But there's one thing I did not lose, and that's my faith. That thing got me through most of everything I've had to go through is my faith. And I think it's impossible for us to ever go wrong with one another. I teach them predominantly Hispanic, African American school right now. They have nothing, nothing. And that's why I left here, a lucrative position with the county attorney's office. I was on the Board of Education, first African American woman on the Board of Education for Papillion. So there's some things I did. I want my girls to know that you can go and be anything you want to be. That's what my mother always told me. And so that's even coming out of the $20 a month household. Y'all wouldn't even y'all spend $20 when you walk out the door. It just is invigorating to know that you can become something uh, out of nothing. It's almost like the woman who had gave out of her uh, need. She was able to continually provide for her family because she gave out of her need. What does that mean? Give out of your need. It's in scripture. Give out of your need. What would that mean? Y'all are twins. Thank you. That's what take out. I didn't know. Give out of your need. What is that? I make $20 a month, and when I go to church, the church will tell me I should pay 10%. What's 10%? $2. But that $2 could buy a sack of meal. It could buy a couple of chickens, or it could buy lard to make biscuits for a week. Because could remember going to home or going to school with a biscuit and some fatback meat. That was my lunch. That was my lunch. Y'all wouldn't dare come to school with fatback meat sandwich or biscuit. This is what we had to go through as children. And there's so many of our children, African American kids, Hispanic kids now. That's all they have in North Carolina are those fatback sandwiches. No milk in the household. And that's why come I teach in North Carolina because they don't have a swimming pool to go to this summer. Or y'all out at pools and having pool parties, they don't have that. Every week I have one child that'll come in. He must eat three breakfasts because they don't have food at home. He tries to get it all in at one time because he doesn't have the food to eat at home. But does that make him any less a person? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And because he is Hispanic, should I treat him any less? Absolutely not. But that's not what Christ did. If Christ had put away everybody that did not look like him or did not walk the streets like he walked the streets or his disciples walked the streets, we'd be in terrible shape now. This world would not be as it is. But because we have to love one another, because not of who we are as one person, but there's also scripture say, I can't get along because you got the leg and you got a leg and you got an arm and you got an arm. We all have to work together. And I could not have been the person I am or been through it and had done as much as I've done in my lifetime. I've traveled everywhere I can imagine. Oceans, airplanes, cars. I just bought me a old Boone's car, a Jeep Grand Cherokee. That's what I figured. That's my last car I'll ever buy. My Jeep Grand Cherokee, and I love it. I love it. But it married part of me with it. But it's a crucial thing that even though we have this social reintegration, resegregation, uh, we must have this social reintegration. We've got to bring everybody back to the table. Everybody has to work together in order to make this country where it's supposed to be. We can't separate ourselves and think it's going to be all right. We cannot exclude our neighbors because we think it'll be all right. It will not be. I'm sure you guys have things in your homes that I probably will never have in my household. But that don't make us any less different. I got more years behind me now than I do in front of me. I thank God for that. I had a stroke at 2014 that took my whole right side. I couldn't even write my name, and I have beautiful handwriting. I don't anymore. If you see me breaking it times, my brain still don't click like it used to click because of that. But I think the first thing I did after I got out of the hospital, after I think I was in the hospital 2 months from following that stroke, is teach Bible. I'm a Bible teacher at church. I teach adults. So I think if I had stopped and said, "Oh God, you did this to me. I can't write. I can't walk anymore. I can't do this," I'd have been stuck. But I still drive my Jeep Grand Cherokee, and I still travel. I was just at Myrtle Beach for my 70th birthday on the beach. I can't stop living because there's still so much to do. And I think this Keith, thank her for inviting me here today. I don't know what this is. It probably hasn't uh, been anything to you, but I hope it does. Just seeing that, even though I am a different race and got 3 or 4 different races within me, cultures within me, I'm still okay. And we can still teach each other something. There's something about what we do or how we live each day that we can teach somebody something. Any questions? I probably ran all over the place. Look, this again. Maybe I get better the next time y'all can come back. Questions? I'm glad y'all twins, so y'all were messing me up. Okay, y'all were messing me up. Any questions? Ask it. Yes, sir.
As someone who was able to experience the civil rights movements back in the 60s, 70s, and the ones that we have today, how do you think of the movements we have
It's the same movement, just different characters. Same movement, different characters. Where it was lying dormant because nobody had any addressed any issues, same movement. We just got quiet and sat back and was hoping it was okay to not speak about it. But different things happen, and now it's back up in us. How do you feel about it as a teenager?
today? I feel a lot of ways that um, some of the movements becomes kind of radical to the point where it's more dividing than unifying.
Good point. And that's not unusual because when we're not together, that's how it tears us apart. We're not on the same page. We're not talking the same language. And so it does tear us apart rather than bring us back together. But where does it start? Where does it start? One, communication. Me sitting here today, I survived. It was more. It was worse then than it is today. I mean, the shooting didn't stop. I mean, it's like I said, just like lay dormant. It didn't stop. It just lay dormant for a while. But I want you to see that in every movement, it's got to come stop being protested and become policy. We are supposed to be the melting pot of the world, but the melting pot is melted away, and we got to rebuild it. And how do we do that? By young people saying it's not. This is not the way it's supposed to be. We should be able to come in here and speak to each other without. I, you may like apple pie. I can't stand apple pie if it doesn't have ice cream on it. But that should make us any different. There are different things. My hair today is mine because I paid for it. But you know, just because my hair, the chicks got flat hair, I wish I had long hair. But that don't make us any different. He can still speak to me. We can still love each other and still be different. You know, my eyes are brown, her may be green or blue or whatever it may be. Right now, in my family, I have just my children alone. All my children are African American with some Indian in them and a little bit of everything. Both two of my daughters married. One of my daughters have married a Hispanic Indian. Mary's dad is Indian. Um, uh, my other daughter is married to an African American, but we're all one family. I can't say I don't like those son-in-laws because they don't look like mama. They're my family. And I think that I had to let my children make decisions of their own. And I think that's what makes our family. And we love each other dearly. I love my girls. I love my girls. I might not like some things they do every now and then, but I love my girls. And they love each other. And they take care of each other. I could not be in North Carolina right now, leaving Mary here in Omaha, if I didn't trust my girls to take care of them. We can't stop talking, not protesting all the time, but talking. As I could think we're at a point where we need to just sit down and, like the United Nations, try to get together and make some decision that makes sense. But at least we are talking. And I can see where you as a teenager sitting, we're pulling apart rather than coming together. What what should your emotion be? What should you be doing as a teenager? Just this group in here, these eight students. What would you do?
Have a conversation about what the problem is, how to find out more information.
Do you do that?
Yeah.
And are they receiving it well, or do they not receive it well? Mixture.
Yeah.
But then again, that mixture is what is going to make that conversation better. Because you got to listen to their side as well. I have my side, you have yours, he has his. But there's something we all got to have on the same note. We got to be on the same page. And once we get back there, it won't lie dormant the next time. It won't lie dormant. Hopefully we'll be all together for the rest of our lives. That's what God wants. He said, love your neighbor as yourself. You can't love me and love God at the same time. No, no, you can't. No, you can't not love each other and love God. Because he's telling us God is love. And we have to be able to share each other. I have to love you because God tells me that's what scripture says. We have to love each other. But I also got to recognize that you're going to have some different things within you that I don't have. And those differences make you who you are, and mine make me who I am. And if we disagree, we need to come together and have those conversations that you have. We may not do it today or tomorrow. It took us 60 years to get dormant. It may take another 60, and I may not be here to see it. Well, I pray not 130. Oh, gosh, no. But it may take another 60 to have it where it needs to be. Y'all be having Grand Cherokees flying around in the sky. I just saw somewhere today where GMC is putting batteries in cars and you're supposed to be able to drive somewhere. I don't believe that. But y'all have it. But there are different things going to happen. And all we just got to have faith that God would direct all our tongues in the way that we could make changes come to pass and stay there. Any other question? Anybody believe in anything that I'm saying? Because you have to believe that some change is going to come. My grandmother and great grandma believed that I would someday be sitting not where I am today, but away from the hate and the bitterness, the name calling, the name changing. Yes, ma'am.
One of one of the statements that I seek to live by is to seek first to understand before seeking to be understood. And we've got mostly white kids, right? And so, what is something? You've got a white teacher. What is something that we can do to
I live Cornerstone. But when I came here a year and a half ago, how many of me were there, Miss Keiser?
understand? I mean, kids or
Me.
No, I was just asked recently, does our faculty
Is it
represent
diverse?
our student body?
No. And that has to change. That has to change. You can't learn about me if me ain't here, right? Because you don't see me every day. You know, all you see is something on TV at 6 o'clock news, and that's it. You don't live it every day. I have to be in your face. You have to see the way I act, the way I work, the way I love these teachers here. The year and a half I was here, I was just amazed at the knowledge I could get from them. And as when I became the business witness director at the county attorney's office, there was no black women in that building. Right down here in Papillion. This was in the my granddaughter was graduating from Papillion High School. There was no blacks in there. But I fought like heck to get in that probation system. I had to go back to school and get some criminal justice, knowledge. But I kept fighting to get in that position. I became a junior juvenile probation officer, a senior probation officer. I went from and I walked in the county attorney's office after I applied for a job that a young white man had. And the only thing he said to me is, "How much you want to get paid?" Woo, that was an interview. I like that. How much you want to get paid? Because he saw me every day in that courtroom helping my victims, doing what I needed to do as a probation officer. And I'm old school. Even at school, I'm old school. I have boundaries. I don't let you mistreat my other kids. They don't look like you. I don't. I demand respect, and there are borders. I mean, there's boundaries. And there's consequences for behavior. It might not be always good, but again, you can't understand me if you aren't around me. And that county attorney saw me in court every day, saw the way I was acting, saw me in these different meetings where there was only me, and all he could ask me in that interview was how much you want to get paid. Good interview. And I worked there until I left here in 2004. But that doesn't happen always. So others have to put themselves out here. When I came here and saw that I was going to be the only black teacher in this building, oh God, I was terrified. And they're Christians. Oh, what am I going to hear? I was shocked because number one, I sat back and listened. And you can tell a lot when a person don't say nothing. I don't have to be talking all the time, but I got to be listening. And what you're saying around me, or what not saying around me, your facial expressions, when you speak to me in the hallway, how do you treat your black students here at Cornerstone? You sit at the table with them and find out what their parents and their families are like? I would hope so. I would hope so. Because they may not even have what you think they have if you don't communicate. They're here at Cornerstone. We all pay tuition, but do they have the same thing? What is different from their family and my family? I may look good. I may come in here in my Adidas and my, I don't know what y'all wear these days, but these expensive tennis shoes on. But I may not. Why don't I? Have you sat down long enough to talk to me and to see what's going on in my life? If you have, you learn something about the nature of man that we don't usually get when we don't have conversations. We just imagine what they have or what they don't have. We imagine that they don't have 12 in the family and none of us eating today. We can imagine that, they can't go to the grocery store, they can't. I can't imagine them not having to wash and dry in the house and have to go to the laundromat once every 2 weeks because they can't afford to go to the laundromat. I can only imagine that. But I wouldn't know unless I sat down and talked with them. What can you do for your fellow man? Scripture says you want to be treated well, and I do too. Love one another as I have loved you. And there's nothing that you can't do in this world. It may start out small, but become a major radical experience, and radical in a good way. Because I didn't know when I was marching with Martin Luther King that I'd be sitting here in a predominantly white Catholic Christian school today. I just saw myself in this poor neighborhood, never getting out of Roseboro, North Carolina. I love it down there. It's so quiet and peaceful. But I thought I'd never leave North Carolina and that little town that separated me from my downtown. So it's because I wanted more for me. I got a girlfriend. We just went to Myrtle Beach a couple weeks earlier to celebrate her 70th birthday, and she has never left North Carolina. Never left the town she was born and raised in. 70 years. Can you imagine being in the same place 70 years and not going anywhere? But when I came home, I had stories to tell. How did you do that, Mary? How? They couldn't imagine this little girl from Charles E. Perry High School would be in a position to have her own business in her early 20s, raise four children, have four great grandkids, not great grand, but grandchildren, and do as much as I've done, travel as much as I have, talk with each other, learn about each other. We're all the same people, just a little different here, but we're the same. Okay, y'all. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. You only gave me 40 minutes to talk. You're welcome, dear. And thank you for being a twin. I'm gonna have to get glasses. Thanks. Thank you, dear. These came from Goodwill. What about oh, the men's I still have them. Is it yours? What? Yeah. I don't remember. You said jeans from Goodwill. I still have the jeans that I got from Lawson. Oh, those ones? Hang on, yeah. Oh, we have stuff. We do have stuff. It's I want to get started as quickly as possible. We have prayer meetings today, so I'm going to pray. Do I need to go? What? Yes, it is.
I know it's gonna. I'm not sure what's the deal with my bill, but, that's okay.